Our guest speaker and I were just talking about the midst of people, and we're glad to see all of you. Today's session is going to be done by Lee Vucovich from the library. How many of you have met Lee before in her library? No, I guess no. Okay, great, a whole new audience. I was going to say that it's like, this is not just your old Pubmed and how to search Pubmed. She's got a lot of new things to show you and different techniques you can use for literature searching, but also just different sources of information for a variety of the areas, the research areas that you're interested in. So it's a combination of technique and new sources of information. And we are delighted to have you. I will be kind of stepping in and out of today's session, but I leave it to our guest speaker to handle you all. And this is our group.
Yes. Well, I'm Lee Vucovich, and I actually have a different title, but I'm head of reference at Lister Hill Library of the Biomedical Sciences. Our libraries currently are undergoing a unification process under a new dean, and so you can anticipate seeing a lot of changes over the next couple of years, both in content and in the web's presence. So a lot of what we're going to look at today, do not focus too much on where it is. You have my PowerPoint, all the links are live, because over time it's going to change. It's going to be much, much better, I hope. And I also have a liaison. I work with the CCTS. I am currently working with the School of Dentistry. We have anybody here from School of Dentistry? Well, we hire a new librarian for that. And I work with the Graduate Biomedical Sciences and the Joint Health Sciences. And by extension, I've been working with the School of Medicine research community on research needs. So a lot more searching and what database to use and known and NIH compliance and things like that. We have another liaison that works primarily with the education aspect of the School of Medicine. So before we get started, I do have cards, but you have my email address there. If you have any questions as a result of this, or something you want to learn more about, or something totally unrelated about the library, I am now your personal librarian. Whenever I do a session, you become part of my liaison outreach group, and I hear from people all the time. So please do ask me. How many of you do clinical care, actually patient care, or if you're a medical student, will be doing patient care? But just, I want to get an idea of the group. So several of you. How many of you do basic biomedical research? Some, okay. How many of you are involved in writing grant proposals? Okay, that just gives me an idea, because I wasn't sure how to structure this, because I didn't know what the audience would be. So if you find that there is an overwhelming amount of information, so that when you want something that you need, you either get something that isn't exactly what you want, or you have to scatter through, go through a gazillion records of scatter, or find it hard to keep up with new developments that would inform a grant decision, you are not alone. And just this slide just shows you what is going on right now with most recent numbers I could find. 24 million citations in Pubmed, with 2,000 to 4,000 new ones added daily, 5 days a week. The STM journals now are up to 28,000 of peer-reviewed journals in science, technical, and medicine, and they launch 500 new each year. And compound that with open access, and the directory of open access journal is now up to over 10,000 open access journals that are flooding your Google search results and everything else that you're looking at. So what we're going to try to do today in the limited amount we have, because the competency has to do with searching the literature with electronic techniques, we're going to focus only on literature. I'm glad to answer any questions on other resources afterwards. And I'm going to talk about looking for papers for clinical decisions and for research grant proposals and publication. And because once you find the answer you're looking for, or get your articles together for that grant or that lit review for your paper, you're one study away from being out of date. I'm going to point out the electronic methods available with these resources to keep you up to speed. So you don't have to keep wondering if something's come out. Let them do that for you. And then if we have time, I'm going to talk about a couple of places you can go to get author metrics like H-indexes, find out where to publish, and find out journal impact, because almost everybody in academia, part of their literature, is sharing their results, and it'll depend on time. So, of course, the all-important is citing your article. To find info, and what I do want to say is because of time, I have some things set up, so I have put some PowerPoint slides, and I'm going to just show those. Others, I've planned demonstrations. However, anything that I show you on a slide that you want to see, say, show me. I'd rather give you what you need than to give you what I think you need. So feel free to ask a question or ask me to go online if there's something that you would like to see. So finding information efficiently in this overload of information, it's important to understand how the information you need is organized. Typically, what you'll be looking for will be in some sort of database or resource. So we're going to talk about a couple of different organizational schemes for those as we look at them. And then you have to choose the right resource. So we'll talk about that a little bit in terms of clinical resources, and then use them correctly. So it seems like you all probably do this, but when I sit at people's desks with them and watch them search, Google and natural language has made it really, really easy for us to forget that some of these other databases just don't respond as well as they should to that. So if this is important, not just, oh, I want to see what's out there, think about your key concepts before you begin. Brainstorm some keywords and synonyms, or figure out the subject headings in your database so that you know if you have to do a free text search, what words need to be included. And of course, this becomes easier as you become an expert in your field because you'll know those off the top of your head. And then build your search statements using and, or, sometimes not, between your concepts, and then look for retrieval. At that point, you can refine the search in multiple ways, save it, and consider getting the email alerts sent out for you. So this is a slide of our homepage. And how many of you been here? Hopefully a few of you have been here. Okay, so when you open up our homepage, in the middle, there's a big box. And these are the databases used to find articles most often by our users. Each one, if you click on the tab, has a search box and a link to the native database. I generally start in the database because it's easier to me to build concepts there. And right here is an extensive guide to how to use it that we've put together for you. So for example, I'm going to show you a couple of Pubmed tools and searches. Each on the search tab in that guide, you will see 4 different tabs, each of which has videos and more detailed instructions on those searches. So today, don't worry about the click tab. Know you can go right back there and get it, or you can email me and I'll send you a direct link. We also maintain an A to Z list of all of our databases and resources on that databases page. And so that's where you find things like protocols if you're in basic science, or impact factors, or faculty of 1,000, or these kinds of things. And again, there's a little chat box on that page, and a lot of people chat in and say, where do I start with this topic? So I want to also point out the Ask a Librarian button. We have our online reference with a chat box from 8 in the morning till 6 in the evening and on Sundays. Otherwise, you'll get a link to email, and we check that email in the evening between 9 and 10, and then between 7 and 8 in the morning. So if you get stuck on anything, please use that box and go on and do something else, and let us help you with the library stuff. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about resources for clinical care. And the thing about answering a clinical question is you do not have time to go into Pubmed and look at all these studies and everything. you are typically going to need it for rounds tomorrow, or you're going to need it either to answer a patient who's you have to call back tonight or is waiting in your office or at the bedside to let the nursing staff know something. Or maybe you have a couple of days or a week with a long list. So instead of starting a methodical search, this is called a 6S model, and it's the current model for finding, using the literature to inform clinical decisions. And if we had an electronic health record with decision support built in, so you put in your patient's vitals and out came a treatment plan with 3 or 4 references, awesome. As far as I know, we don't have it, and much is up to date, and other companies are trying to get stuff built into the record. It's not there yet. But summaries of evidence are very helpful because they give you often recommendations and key pieces of evidence that are updated frequently for each piece of whatever you're looking for. So if you're looking for a treatment, it'll give you each medical treatment and an article of reference to go along with it. So that's kind of where you start, and it's very different with the kinds of things that we'll be talking about, research studies and writing systematic reviews. Typically, if you use the old-fashioned hierarchy of evidence, which most of you that are clinical have seen, you start with the best evidence will be found in a Cochrane or similar reviewer analysis because it has the least bias, and then you go down to basic studies. They actually start right around here because it's actually quicker to read a synopsis of those studies and then pick the one you need to read. And so basic studies are non-filtered evidence. They're below the line, but both Pubmed and Embase give you quick filters for systematic reviews. So just kind of good to think about this for clinical decisions that have to be made fast for individual patients with common conditions. This is the way you go. So here at UAB, we have 2 major databases, UpToDate and Dynamed. Now, how many of you have seen UpToDate? Surely everybody in this room that has anything to do with patients. None of you know UpToDate or Dynamed. Okay, I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, and then what I put down here are a couple of very good demonstrations of how to use them. This is by Dr. Terry Shanifeld here, who's our EDM guru, and this one is from UpToDate itself. But what it does is you can go in and you can put in your search term. This one shows triple negative breast cancer. Let me see if I can kind of expand that a little bit. Because I don't want to spend huge amounts of time on it because many of you are not medical, but you all have access. I can't, and you all have access to it, so it's kind of nice to know about. And then you'll come up with all of these individual topics, starting with a summary, indications, treatment, and it will, when you click on those, there will be short paragraphs and references that link back to Pubmed. I would say that probably it is a very expensive tool, and it is purchased by HSIS. The library would not have journals if we purchased it. But if you're interested in that kind of a question, clinical care, it's the gold standard. Dynamed, though, is really interesting because it takes a different approach. And it's organized just set up very quick and easy to get to what you want. So on this particular search, this was trigeminal neuralgia, and you can look at it on you can go quickly right away to causes and risk factors, down to treatment and individual medications. But the other thing it has that's really helpful and useful for background information is when you go to the guidelines and references. Sometimes it's hard to find evidence-based guidelines, and they list the best ones there with links. And they also have links to some really good narrative reviews. And they've been reviewed by their editorial staff and carefully selected. Those are hard to find in Pubmed. If you look for trigeminal neuralgia and you just want to get an overview of it, you get hundreds and thousands of articles on very specific pieces. So using this tool is a very very good way to get background information. So does anybody have questions about that? They are both on our databases page, and when you get your PowerPoint, you can click through and look at them if you want to. Personally, when I get questions from my family, which I imagine many of you do because you work in an institution about grandma's this or dad's that, this is my go-to source. So it's kind of fun to have it. Can I move on, or does anybody want a little bit more? Okay, in clinical care, keeping up is also hugely important because one meta-analysis tomorrow may change your treatment from today. And one of the big issues in medicine is the amount of time it takes to disperse out the information that you need for good patient care. Sometimes out in the field, maybe it's the drug risks that bring it to you. So here are a couple things you can do. UpToDate has an amazing little app, and when you install it on your phone, I do have it if anybody wants to look at it. On the opening page, there's a big thing, what's new. If you click on it, you can choose your specialty. This is showing hospital medicine, and everything that's been added to UpToDate is there. Within the last couple of years, UpToDate went from being criticized for being out of date to updating frequently, almost daily. So if there's something really important, you'll see it there. This is a resource from McMaster, and it's pure evidence, and it's free. You can sign up for it, and when you do that, you pick your discipline, and if something comes in that's important in the literature, you get an email with a little graph like this. You choose if you want new or how relevant it is to your practice. A short summary of why you should read this study, and then they have comments. And unlike the snarky comments in the blogs at al.com or something, these are generally specialists in the field who comment on everything from the power calculation to how this will help their practice or whether or not they wouldn't read it at all. So it's a very nice little resource. Okay, I'm going to take a second to digress and show you browsing. This is not just for clinical care, this is for anyone. So browsing is an app that we pay for the university, so it will be free to you. Currently, it is only available for iOS and Android phones and tablets, but it is coming up online early in the fall, and we have also paid for that. What it does is it provides you one-click access from the table of content from any journal that you want to select to put on your bookshelves. And I have this so you can come up and look at it afterwards. So you can select the journals that are important in your field, put them on a bookshelf, so you click on it, you get the list of the table of contents, and then if you want to see it, you click it on it again, and you're not going to see any article link or anything else. You're going to see a full PDF. It's usually a little bit slower the first time it brings one up. And it's great because you can read on the fly. And then if you like it, you can email it to yourself or upload it to an EndNote library, share it with anybody. Well, those are copyright things. I'm not allowed to tell you to share it, but you actually could share it with other people at the institution. And so it's a very useful tool. Try it out. And unlike the usual free table of content tools, see, there it is, which are really only targeted at medicine and Pubmed journals, this is all the journals that Browsine has a relationship with the publishers at Stern and at UAB. So it doesn't matter if you've got an IT journal or if you've got something like that. They will, if they can have been able to make an arrangement with the publisher, you will see our content. You won't see things we're not licensed to provide. So, and that's brand new. So that, yeah.
And this is topical because when I'm not on a UAV computer, right? Normally I say at home or so, I would like to see full text of a journal that I'm sure Liz will have a subscription, right? well, at least one example where I could not get the full
Right.
text. Maybe I did it wrong, but eventually I need to have, and yet if I want to read it on the go, on the tablet, I basically need to have it as a PDF because internet is not always a given, live internet.
Right.
So as soon as I went, it was, the journal was genome research, this particular one, table of context, it was all there, but full text,
Right.
nothing.
That's a very important question, and I actually have about 4 slides devoted to it in a minute and a half. So we are going to talk about that. That's probably the question we are asked most, and so we will talk about it. I'm going to show you exactly what to do to make that happen. But this avoids that because it doesn't matter where you are. You will authenticate when you set up your account. And also, if you do use this, one of the options is to put it on, to download it as a PDF to your tablet. I don't have enough space to do that much, so I usually send it to my computer, but you can also do that. So this is something to look at, but I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. And one of the most common situations for that is reading a TOC update at home, because you don't go through our proxy. Okay, so this is just how to get the app and everything, so for those of you that are interested. This is just a resource. Everything I'm talking about today is here someplace. So I just want you to be aware. This is how to get to full text, for example, that I'm going to show you. Under databases, all the demonstrations for the various databases that I'm showing and not showing today. And I think probably I'll put the presentation, there's presentations in the lower left corner. I'll probably put this there as well. Okay, now moving on from clinical, let's talk about resources for research. So I'm going to talk about Pubmed, although I'm sure you all use it. How many people use Pubmed weekly? Right, how many people think you're getting great results? Yeah, that's basically what I hear. So I'm going to go into this a little bit because it's also the gold standard, and it will frame our understanding of the other databases and how we talk about the other ones that we will talk about today. So the important thing, there are a couple things about Pubmed. It's a gold standard. It's free, so consequently it's used worldwide, but it only has 5,600 of all those journals in it. So you are just getting a subset of the literature, and it's really important to remember that. It is what they consider the best journals, and they are trying to involve international literature a little bit more, but it is definitely a subset of literature. But it's free, and everybody in the world uses it, and if you leave academia, you can still use it. The other thing to remember is it has no full text articles in it. They're on another server somewhere, but it provides access. Typically, it's the publisher's server that it provides access to. But so that's really important to keep in mind when we talk about searching. Pubmed and all databases that are based on old print indexing, like CINAHL, like anything that has abstracts, like PsycInfo, and like Embase that I'm going to show you next, are built on a database of records that look like this. So when you search Pubmed, you search the record. Now you can see how horrible your results would be if those were the only search terms you found. So these databases do what's called controlled vocabulary. They have a different name in every one for what it is, and in Pubmed it's called MESH, medical subject headings, and you can see them for this record right there. What it means is a doctor had, the reader, actual human being at the National Library of Medicine, reads an article and he says, oh, this article is about having a heart attack, and this article on myocardial infarction is about having a heart attack. They're both about the same subject, even though they use different terminology. So I'll give that subject a name, and that's a medical subject heading. Happens to be myocardial infarction. So for any article that has been indexed and read, and that usually takes a few months when they go into Pubmed, you will be able to pull up a list of all the different mesh headings put on there. So if you are interested in laser capture microdissection, you could click on that and see all the articles on that. Or you could also get some synonyms to improve your search based on what you see here. So this one probably has neoplastic stem cells, ovarian neoplasms, peptides analysis, all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of helpful when you're starting a topic or research or a grant or something like that you really need to be knowledgeable, to look at some of this a little bit and figure out which ones are standard to the articles you're finding, because then you can construct a search with those. Now, Pubmed does something else. All the other databases do not. Embase does that I'll be showing you, and that's called automatic mapping. In a sense, the computer tries to read your mind. It says, if I put in breast cancer, it says, you probably met breast neoplasms. So it will search for that mesh heading for me to get everything under breast neoplasms and also breast cancer as a text word. So if many of you get really good results, it's because your understanding of your subject is so good, you're using the terminology that Pubmed maps correctly. Typically, if you get bad results, part of the reason is the mapping is not accurate. And I'm going to show you when we go into Pubmed, that's the first thing I do in every search, how to check that, how to fix it. Okay, now we're going to start talking about full text, because I use the power of that mapping in databases to get full text. So this is exactly what happened to you. You were looking at a table of contents, or like most of us, I wonder what's out there on this subject. Oh, Dr. Google, tell me what we can see there first. And lo and behold, up comes one really good article, and you click on it, and you get this. You get a nice little record. You have a publisher link. You click on it, because on campus, the publisher link works really actually about half the time or 3/4 of the time. And up comes this handy little, you've requested this, but 24 hours will be $60. Do not ever pay $60. Do not ever consider it. We will get it for you for free if we don't have it, and that'll take a couple of days. We have another option that's $6 that is primarily used, I think, by people in the middle of the night who have a grant due at 2 o'clock, or at 6 o'clock in the morning. And that's only because it's immediate, and we can't furnish immediate when we're borrowing it from someplace else. So what you're going to do is copy your article title. And then, if it's biomedical, paste it into the Pubmed search box. If it is not biomedical, I always go to Scopus next. That includes almost 20,000 journals, so it's going to give you IT stuff and social science stuff and everything. And if that doesn't work, go to Google Scholar and paste it in, and you will bring up, hopefully in Pubmed, you will bring up a different record. Same thing, except it has this little UAB article linker button. This button is in all of our databases. So if you look at Scopus, you will see it. And in Google Scholar, you'll do your settings and you get a link for it that says find it at UAB. And once you've done that, this whole process takes less than 30 seconds, I think. If we have it, you get this wonderful screen. You just click on that article link, authenticate, because now they know we paid for it. And there you go. So the real trick is to get from where you are into a site that will ask you to authenticate, and then you'll get full text. So what if we don't have it? I'm sure some of you have seen this, hopefully far less frequently since our new dean brought back the Elsevier Science Direct package with lots of good journals. You can look at Google Scholar if you want. It's very good in areas like public health, very bad in terms of having free things in trends and things like that, because basically publishers put an embargo on new stuff. But there are people that put it in repositories and it comes up. Or you can just go directly here and click a request. The first time you do it, you need to make a username and password that is not your Blazer ID. And if you are working within Pubmed, that form will be populated with you, so you aren't even going to have to put journal information in. Hit submit. Once you've created your account, the next time you just log into it and hit submit. And we will have it for free on that account you created. We send you an email link. You go, you download it, and you've got your article. And we're currently promising 2 to 3 business days, and we are hiring students to help us get that process down. In addition, we are happy to do that. See, we're not asking you, oh, is it in the print collection? Well, maybe you ought to walk over and use our print collection. Those are pretty much locked up now. So if we have it, we have an extensive print collection from earlier articles. If it's there, we also will scan and give it to you. You don't have to do anything. We'll just find the article any way we can. Those come faster. Usually I get them when I request them. Any question on that?
Is there a limit on the number that you can request, or?
Not right now. No, and there was some talk about that. I don't think there's an idea in terms of limiting it in any normal way a researcher would do. There have been examples in library literature of people trying to request and download, all the past 5 years of New England Journal of Medicine and sending them overseas. Those things get our resources locked up. So if we were to see some kind of crazy pattern, we would have a discussion about why it was necessary, probably. Our intent is to support research and student success at UAB, and that it would not say, oh, just because you're on the topic, we didn't purchase this great stuff, or you don't get it. That wouldn't be the intent. Anything else? Okay, there are a couple other ways you can get to full text. I've shown you browsing. How many of you use EndNote? Okay, if you've got EndNote 7, I believe maybe 6 or higher, you can bring your references in, click under references on Find Full Text, and if you have set your preferences up with our proxy information, it will go out and try to find you full text. I find it gets 60 to 80% depending on the field. But that 60 or 80 things you don't have to look up or go back to PubMed and download and drag over. So if you don't know how to do that, there's a link there that will show you exactly how to set those preferences up in EndNote. And Google Scholar, if you do the settings and we have time to look at it, I'll show you to Lister Hill Library. You will be linked to our article linker button. It will show under where they show you the PDFs anytime we have online full text. And so it's not supposed to show when we don't, so that's a time saver, so you just click on it and up comes the PDF. Does that handle full text for everybody? All right, so let's go into
So browsing would be one way. What if someone would sit at home and wanted to see whether a couple of journals, particular journals, have anything interesting new? Would you go into the e-journals?
Yes, you could use the e-journal list on that homepage tab, look up the journal, click in, and then if you were looking at the table of contents, you would be within our proxy, and so anything you picked up would show. You would be able to get full text.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly, because the whole point is if you go through our homepage or something else, like all of our guides, if you're looking at a guide and you want to do something, we have links back through the proxy. It has to be one of our sites so that you get that authentication. Okay, so I'm going to go into PubMed, and I'm going to do a simple search and show you some of the things that I think are important for you to know. So it's going to look for pharmacogenetics. So you'll notice I put all my terms in, although it says I spelled this one wrong. Oh yeah, there it is. Sorry. I'm not used to not being able to see what I'm doing when I put it in. And I do not use quotes around phrases in PubMed or asterisks because it turns off mapping, and obviously you want to have the mapping. So I'm going to go ahead and do this search. PubMed's mapping is so good that it actually does try to take into account the fact that heart disease is a phrase. If you're uncomfortable with the way that looks, you can put a capital A and D between your concepts. There are times I do that, but I wanted you to see that. And I'm coming up with 626. The first thing that I want to show you, and this is why I wanted to put this up here, is this details box shows you exactly how your search was run. So down here you can see heart disease. They looked for the mesh term, so that's great. And also these are some various types of free text. Pharmacogenomics, they looked for that as a mesh term and full text. And treatment, they did therapy or treatment in all fields, and therapeutics in all fields, and mesh terms for therapeutics. So there's a lot of different things they did with that term. So this is going to be a very comprehensive search. If you found something you didn't like it mapped to a journal title, or you can go into this field, just delete out what you want to change and rerun your search. So that's how you can begin to see why your search isn't working. There are a lot of techniques you can do under advanced search, and I would recommend calling me if you want to get into it. If you're getting weird things, like one of your search terms is something like river, you might get a lot of people whose address is on River Road, or something like that, and you can get rid of that by narrowing it to a title and abstract search, and I can show you how to do that. But generally, that's just a really good place to start. Now over here are some filters, and it looks like somehow I was logged in on this machine, so I'm actually going to sign out so you can see what it'll look like when you're doing it. And and I'm sorry, what it did is it kicked me out of the proxy, which I don't know why, but so we'll have to go back here and start again. There. Okay, so over here you have filters, and you can put on things like a clinical trial filter. You can put on things like age filters, languages, all sorts of different things, and you can look at different publication types. So these are other ways you can narrow your result set to make it very focused. Unfortunately, though, that whenever you do that, the article has to be indexed. And if it isn't, you're not going to see it. You're going to miss some of the newest stuff. So over here, we've built some filters especially for UAB. One of them is a full text filter. So if you need to do something tomorrow, you don't have time to wait for interlibrary loan, you can look at that if you're just trying to get a sample paper. Or you can come down here. This filter will have only articles that have been indexed, useful if you're trying to see mesh terms. But this filter will give you the 23 articles that never went through the indexing. I generally send them here to the clipboard, wherever it is. There it is. And this is an online space just to hold them while I search around. As I find good articles, especially if I'm doing a lot of searches, put them all in the clipboard and then I send them off to Excel or EndNote or wherever I want to save them only once. So once you've done that, then you can come back and put on a filter, like maybe I'll do clinical trials, and maybe I'll do English, because I don't read anything else. And see, we're down to 66. And if what you really wanted was trials, you've taken that huge 600 and gone down to 66. Well, that's pretty much covering what I was going to show in PubMed. I do want to point out that you do have the option of a relevance sort. So a lot of people prefer that, they like it, and it comes up with time, with new. But if you use this filter, you won't miss anything new if you use your relevance sort. So you're good. And we're going to go back. Oh yeah, create an alert. This used to be called Safe Search. It still is Safe Search, but we don't know why PubMed changed the name of it. But you click this, you'll be asked to make a MyNCI account, and then you can save your search online, and you can have them send you, you can select automatic email updates, how often, once a week, once a day, once a month, and what day you want them to come on. So if this is something you're going to use, take advantage of it, but then you never have to go back in. You can go back and rerun the searches once they're saved as well. So I'm going to go back to the Pubmed homepage to show you two other features. There are some special topic queries here. The clinical queries let you put in your search terms, and when you do that, you'll have a choice of, you'll see all the systematic reviews on that field, you'll see all the medical genetics. Well, I'll put something in just so that you can see what they are, and then I'm going to show you the special queries for those of you who are in other areas, particularly outcomes research. So you have a choice of the major things, therapy, diagnosis, and so forth here, and a broad or a narrow search. So if you just want a few articles, you can do the narrow search. And then these are some different topics of medical genetics. So it's all there for you very quickly. There are also some other really kind of cool special queries. That I'll show you here. And one of them is specifically outcomes research for those of you who do it. So if you come down here, this is comparative effectiveness research. It has a search box. It'll tell you what the filter is, and it will help you isolate those outcomes and the papers you need for effectiveness research. It won't go outside Pubmed though, so you're still restricted to those journals. And this is where you have to find things like cost and a process assessment, quality improvement, and things like that. Okay. So does anybody have questions on Pubmed?
What is your recommended way of keeping track of what you find? That you found some real great papers.
Okay, so that's a really good question. I use EndNote mostly. So typically I export those to EndNote and I put them in the group about detective search I was doing. But Pubmed, if you go up to where you do my NCEI and you do a send to, it offers an option called collections. And you can make little groups of those articles to come back and review. When I'm in a real hurry, because I don't like everything in EndNote, I just take my clipboard and put it in a collection and name it after the search, and then I go back a little later. And it, again, it's not the search, it's just the articles you selected. I'm going to go quickly through some of these. This is just basically what I've shown you. This is how you create your account. If you are funded by the NIH, use this route. You see R.A. Thomas, because if you ever have to do compliance things, it'll make it easier. Okay, I don't have access to a clock anywhere. Does anybody want to tell me how we're doing time-wise? Okay, so we're going to just spend a couple minutes on this. Embase is a brand new database here at UAB. Some people call it the European Pubmed. And what's good about it, you can read this later, is that you get about 30% unique content. And it's typically from the worldwide literature. So you may have a different scope. There may be more negative studies published. There may be more on complementary or unusual techniques. They may be researching an area of neuroscience that isn't being done in the United States. And so it's really excellent to use it. It has a controlled vocabulary called M-tree. And I think the easiest thing to do is just do a simple search and show you what you can do in 5 minutes or so. So when it comes up, you get this very simple search box, and I think I did retinal degeneration. And then they do use the ANDs in Embase and gene therapy. Something to remember with Embase is that you always put braces in quotes. So I'm going to just go ahead and do that. You also have a variety of tools that really help you focus your search, because you can use a proximity operator, which means it can be within a certain number of words. So if you're looking for a hedgehog signaling pathway, you can say hedgehog within 2 words of pathway, so it gets both signaling and pathway. So a lot, and you can use asterisks. Most of you are comfortable because of your other searching with asterisks. And you can just search, I always do as broadly as possible. And then I go search. This is so new that I actually haven't used it very much. And here's your result list. So up here, it won't let me get rid of that. These are search filters. So you can do some more, maybe less, you can do some different mapping things. And there are some other ones up here. There's an EVM one that's below this. And for whatever reason in Chrome, it will let me get rid of the box. So over here, there's an EVM filter with systematic reviews and things like that. And then over here are result list filters. And it's determined some by your search terms in certain ways. But the thing I want to show you is this really is not a Venn diagram. It looks like it is, because this little tiny area of overlap has 900 of those articles. But if you click on the Embase alone, you will see the 354 articles out of this result set that you did not see in Pubmed. So you can very quickly throw in your Pubmed search and get those articles and see. Something that's important about Embase, though, and I can show you down here, is publication types will show you. It also includes a lot of conference papers and publications. So I think if it loads, which it's loading slowly, it'll let you select only journal articles or in-press articles, so you don't get the conference information. But if you want it, that's okay too. So see, here you are. So sometimes people are looking for conference abstracts, so that's how quickly you can get to them. Up here are some search, pre-filled out search strategies, well, not strategies, boxes for you. So Embase is really, really good at drug and disease group options. So you can go in here, and then you can come up here, and you're going to be able to do some very specific drug fields and routes, for example. You can't do this kind of stuff in Pubmed. So whether you're doing research or not, and they have a similar thing for devices to find them all. Just a quick recommendation to give it a try. Let's see if I can get back to my PowerPoint slide here. Okay, so I put some things in here to show you how to do the things we've talked about. And this is from Embase, their searching tip ideas. Okay, I'm going to talk about 2 more databases now, and I think we'll do it from slides so we can get through by 4. The first is Scopus. Have any of you used Scopus? Okay, you've used it. Did you use it for searching, for citation? Okay, great. Did you like it? Okay, yeah, a lot of people love Scopus. Scopus is a large interdisciplinary database. So if you are doing studies that have to do with medicine and human behavior, for example, you're going to get all the Medline records, because it includes Medline, and also records that you might have found in PsycInfo in one search. And then it includes, since it's interdisciplinary, humanities is its lowest point. But so if you are doing multidisciplinary research, you might want to start searching. Unlike, it was created in, I think, 2003. So unlike those old, cumbersome databases that you had to know controlled vocabulary, this one works on a keyword search. But it works on a keyword search that is based on its records still, not on the full text. And I will show you a record and show you how you can do that. Most people feel very comfortable with keyword searching, so they're very happy with the results that they get. And it's so intuitive, you really don't need to know more than that to get started. Here is a record. And so what you are going to notice is the record includes the abstract. They give you the major entry terms and the major mesh terms, so you can use those. And then most of them have author keywords here, and those are really important in an area where maybe a gene or pathway is called something differently in different fields, because the author will put it here, and if you put in the one in your field, you're going to bring up the right one without all that scatter. You'll notice that there's a complete list of the references here. So if you have a seminal paper, or maybe it's your paper you're going to expand research from as one of your papers, you can go right here and read, and there's an article link or link with each of these references, and you don't have to look them up. It's right there. And the reason people use it the most, though, is it includes forward citations. Some of you may have used Web of Science for that before, and we've replaced that with Scopus. So you can go right up here and see all the documents that have taken this research forward. So if it's your paper and 15 people have cited it, it would be nice to know who they are. They could be competitors, and they could be collaborators, but it would be somebody to know that they are using your work, and then you can see how they've used it. You can see the paper. So those are the reasons people primarily use this: interdisciplinary, international, and to see the citations to papers. And so you can see there, you can set a citation alert to your paper, so every time it's cited, you will know who cited your paper and can read the article. It also has extensive author metrics, so you can find your H index. If you're in one of the people's departments is now requiring it. That is available in Google Scholar, but most places that require it now want it from a licensed database. So I help people with that stuff all the time if you have to do something like that. You can set alerts in Scopus, again, and you can save searches. But like Embase, both of them you have to make a little account online. And I always make it and work in my account because I find I get interrupted. I'm sure that doesn't happen to any of you. So I just click on Save Search because I really hate it when I lose my search. And this is how to set a citation to your own work. So these are just things to help you if you come back. The last thing I'm going to discuss, and not in great detail, is Google Scholar. How many of you use Google Scholar? I'd say almost everybody uses it. And what's interesting about Google Scholar, and why I think it's a real resource that should be on your toolkit if you learn to use 2 or 3 things very, very well, is that Google Scholar searches the full text of the entire article. And there are times when that is really, really useful. So if you're doing new research, often genes and pathways and drugs, they may not have very many peer-reviewed articles about them, but they may be mentioned in the bulk of the trends article, or the author may say, this thing is called this, but alternate names are this. And so you'll see those things. You wouldn't see it in a structured or small abstract. You may be looking for something in the methodology that's never going to make it past the short structured methodology section, and it may be, or you may be looking for a particular test instrument, again, that isn't mentioned in the abstract that you would see on Pubmed, and you will be able to find those things in a full text search. And also, probably most important of all, almost everybody has a method that works pretty well for them in Google. So you can find a couple articles here, look the title up like I showed you to do, get in Pubmed, pull up the mesh terms, pull up similar articles, and you've taken something you're having a hard time with, and you're getting additional information from the research literature. And yeah, don't pay, use ILL. To get full text, this is just the way it looks when you set your references up, and you will see over here a link, Find It at UAB. If you open that up, it's simply going to pop you right, it's going to pop you right into Article Linker. Click on it. Now, if you click on the title, typically the title, like you would if it was online for free, you're going to get that bad news of the $60. So remember to go over and see if you see that Find It at UAB. If you click on one of these PDFs, they usually come up. So these are a few tips that I have for any of you that want to do it a little bit better. Google Scholar is not good for really complicated searches. It gets very confused very fast. So I tend to do my Google Scholar searches in 2 or 3 simple concepts or 2 or 3 ors at a time, and then do several searches, probably like we all use Google. That works better. Google Scholar allows you to set a create alert to any search. So if anything comes new on the search, you can do it there. And you may have noticed there are citations here, articles in Google Scholar that have cited this. It includes more than Scopus because it includes book chapters, theses, things like that. So if you click on the cited 5, you can go to the bottom of that page and create an alert to see who's citing your article in Google Scholar. So hopefully, I am not going to have time to go through this. What I'm simply going to tell you is to look at the slides. If you need to find out the impact factor of a journal, if we do have the database, the new list just came out in June 18. And so there's some slides that show you how to get to it. And there's also some cool slides that link you back to how to use the analytics function in Scopus, which depending on your needs, it can be kind of cool. So I don't think we need to do that now, just kind of show you what's there. So most of our databases, but not all, are available on the cell phone through either a responsive design or an app, or on a tablet. And so if you go into our database page and look in the left column, instructions for access for all of those are there because they're all individual. Because obviously you have to be able to authenticate to get those. And that's where you get them. So does anybody have questions? Yes.
The Scopus looks really nice. So in terms of the contents of the Scopus versus Pubmed, is the Pubmed stuff mostly in Scopus?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Pubmed is not in Scopus, but Medline, which is those indexed Pubmed records, are in Scopus. So when I use Scopus for Embase as my starting point, I throw the same search into PubMed and use that little index I showed you that I got the 23 articles. I get those 23 articles and then I don't worry about it. Scopus has some additional content because it's owned by Elsevier, as does Embase, and it looks like Elsevier and Embase might release some of their newer articles first to themselves and then to PubMed. So you are going to see some discrepancies. But both of them include the entire Medline database. And Google Scholar somehow includes PubMed, not Medline. So you don't have to do that with the Google Scholar. I mean, it's a lot. I just really felt like with this group, since we want to talk about advanced techniques, it's important to understand the Medline piece of PubMed and how to get those missing articles. But yeah, Scopus does a really good job. And if you use some of those mesh terms, because they don't actually use mesh, but if you put in, you figured out it's breast neoplasms, and you put that in, because of the way they index with the keywords, all of those records are going to come up. So you're not really going to miss too much.
So I'm not very familiar with Medline because I mostly just use PubMed. So sounds like they're different things. So what are the differences?
The only difference is that PubMed is based on Medline. So Medline is all the papers that somebody at the National Library of Medicine has read and given a keyword, an index term to. PubMed also includes a whole bunch of papers that hasn't happened. Generally, they don't do it until it's publicized in print, and now they put stuff up 6 months in advance. And it also includes a very growing number of papers from non-Medline journals that were funded with NIH funding. A lot of these are in foreign journals or different kinds of journals, and those you can only get in PubMed. Because if you put it in PubMed Central, requirement of law, then you will automatically get in PubMed. So it's just, that's why it was only 23 out of 900, but that's primarily what they are. So if you can, in Scopus and Embase both, there are ways to exclude Medline records, which sometimes people do because they start PubMed and then they don't want to look at anything in a second. And we have those on the guides, or we can email them.
So you give me the slides.
Yes.
You also have a list. Is there anything besides the slides that I need to send to you?
I don't, but if anybody has something they want included, I don't have a list.
Yeah, you might, I think you might have it in the slides, the kinds of,
Yeah,
because previously you had sent.
I had sent a list of databases, and I can create that again if you think that's useful.
I think it was probably, it's not too difficult.
No, I'm happy to. I just need to update it because things change.
So I could send out the slides to everybody tonight,
Right.
and then, when you get that done.
That is
It's not a big
to you
rush.
by maybe next week.
Yeah, when you get it done, I'll send it out to people.
Sure. I'm happy to do it. It's just a one-page summary of some of the most important databases and databases.
Can you comment on the reference managing system? I used to use reference manager. I migrated to EndNote for a short period, but now I'm using Mendeley. And so do you have comments about, in terms of the research, which one works better with all those databases and with the UAV system?
Okay, so that's a very good question. We primarily support EndNote because about 5 years ago, UAV made it available for free. We do not have RefWorks, and I don't think that that works very well at this level. It's a good undergraduate resource. In terms of exporting from each of these to RefWorks or EndNote or Mendeley or Zotero, the exporting part is pretty much the same. I haven't actually played with Mendeley, although we do have an institutional license for it because Elsevier made us do it because they're trying to get people involved in it. And that probably gives you some ability to do a little bit more than you could without it. But it uses the same kind of output style as Zotero, which I have been asked to support occasionally. I think the biggest difference to academic researchers here is that EndNote has so many more output styles. So if you want to use it to format a journal, and they're better. The Zotero, Mendeley ones, they kind of use the same database. But Elsevier's bought Mendeley. They're sinking a lot of money into it, and so that may be changing. I just haven't looked at it recently. Other than that, they're pretty much the same. EndNote has added some features to compete with Mendeley. In terms of having a sync, online sync things and a bunch of things like that. And Scopus plays much nicer with Mendeley because they're both.
Yeah.
Elsevier is a one
icon.
Yeah, they throw an icon in there, and so you can just click through from Scopus. From everybody else, it's the same procedure pretty much. I haven't. In Pubmed, it's one step to EndNote. But I think the way it's set up, it says citation manager, and I think you just choose a different one because I think that uses RIS style. So.
Where do I get our institution Mendeley thing license? Is it through our library or the IEP?
I don't know. I'll have to find out.
Okay.
Because we have not actively supported it because we just don't have enough people to support 75 different systems. But I will find out for you if that what I think it will give you is access to more something, maybe more styles or more online storage space or
Yeah, the
something.
thing I like is that you can do collaborations. So I'll get references, and then if you are working on the same project, you can access them. They call it group.
Right.
And free installation has a limit on maybe like 2 or 3 groups.
Right. No, you will get more.
Right.
With
So
the
I think that's what I
institutional.
think that would be good.
Right. And you actually can do some of that sharing in EndNote now too.
Oh.
But not quite as easily. But they have that. You can share groups with EndNote Web, that particular feature, and you can share whole libraries with up to 15 people. With I think it's EndNote 7.3 forward. But yeah, can you give me your?
Sure. Yes.
I was gonna say, if you want, because other people may want to know this too, why don't you just email
Okay,
me?
and that may take me a
forward it to
couple
the
days to determine. Because again, we just got this package a couple months ago and we're still sorting through what we can do. But I think you get more groups and I think you get more online storage space. So since we have it, you should definitely.
That would be great.
I agree. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that would be helpful for branches.
Pressure on the mass large, where you don't collision.
You should not.
Okay.
It turns out, Matthew.
Okay,
that-
so after you declare the general storage, just search and keep them.
What I would do, and if you want to have a sit down and really consultation, just send an email with the kind of talk about it. What I do when I want to visit a session is I actually.
I think they're gonna get
The
it.
mesh,
But don't say
we didn't show me how to do that, it's very easy.
Meg
And then I search for, and I close around
So,
it,
but I have
and I
to-
search it and type in abstract.
I mean, that
So
tells
it's a
us
particular kind of syntax.
subcontracted,
Right.
overhanded to
And
Florida.
so when I do something like that, then it's gonna pull up everything.
I have to talk to these
that
people in
comes up.
Florida.
But it also
Within
is gonna
development
pull up
instruction
keywords and
materials
title next, but also for anything really
And Florida's
comprehensive,
gonna
like
do training with
thesis
this.
or.
Yeah.
a
Because I'm doing a systematic review right
All right,
now.
so-
Okay, yeah, the IB.
So,
We do a lot of systematic reviews.
It's
for-
good, but
And
it's,
we have a
reduced
library
the scope a
she's
lot.
awesome with that.
And I have to speak to the Florida people
But we
now.
typically use the mesh
Uh,
database.
See, I'm afraid
So
that
I
they,
go in
I
and
hope
we
they
look
still will
at
do
this, and
it
that's
for
what I'll show you. So that's
because if they
basically
won't,
your mesh
then I'm
term.
in real.
And I export it out and then I add
If I'm doing
my
it.
keywords and I will look like, I
That's,
think, Ray,
I could say we'll do it
will be a
like
stroke,
stroke,
for example.
Uh-huh.
Underneath it is brain infarction.
I think they'll want to do it, but
Then someplace else,
Yeah,
synonym
it's
is
a lot.
application.
Well, I knew that one,
So I
and
look
I
at that record
knew,
and
I
I say,
had the
oh,
feeling.
if I look for.
Well, actually,
infarction,
here's what I thought. I thought they
or
would
I
ask
look
us,
for brain infarction, or
we
apoplexy,
designed
or
first part.
if stroke is a phrase, that phrase, I look at it all together with the next term.
Yeah, but this is a revision of it.
And
This is a revision, right.
You know,
This
typically
is
you
multi-issue.
may get,
So we knew there were gonna be 5 to
SQ
7
as,
grants.
you know, maybe you're gonna get
But they didn't give us an idea of the
4,000
scope.
maybe in your first search,
And
and you
all
don't know what each person.
Okay.
But you do bring in.
So-
more systematic
With our own
reviews.
scope. And I picked the scope.
Okay.
And
Then I
Pubmed
knew
does
this
it for
would
you
be-
automatically, that's one of the nice things.
Because
Like
I
if you do a
went
search,
national now.
it then, when you click on everything, it takes.
So I knew they were gonna say, what I hope they would say is, we'll give you all the money, but you don't have to do as much as you said.
That
was the idea.
They didn't say
Health
that.
service research.
Well, they did that
So,
last time, actually.
basic, I
They
think,
Budgeted 5 grants, a certain amount per grant. Which now we came in with the class, and they said revise your budget to come up to the
Oh,
amount you want to give
Yeah,
away.
and that has.
That was
headings,
great.
and it doesn't-
Wonderful.
So
This time
if you don't use
is,
the
I,
headings
so anyway, so I
and add
figured
keywords,
they might leave the
you're not going to
training
get
amount,
Okay.
but
So,
on
yeah.
us,
That
because
is
I
like
had
a
budgeted 2
yeah,
days
that
for my
is.
scope.
Do I
Training was
try
what they
to find
wanted.
someone who
Training, they
is
said
a librarian,
20,000.
like ask a librarian?
So,
Okay, yeah, and you just ask for me, or you can ask
but the
somebody else to have a
development of materials,
consultation.
I did
about,
double the scope. That I really thought.
But I'd be happy to help you.
So I thought they cut
I
me in
think I show you
a
a
couple
couple
training,
of
but
those kinds of things.
in other words, they don't.
It will really
I
help.
thought they did, I thought they did, me- I
Oh,
thought
for
they,
hospice?
I said we would have to
Like
reduce
a
that scope.
patient outcome.
And they seemed to think that was okay.
You probably should-
Because I can't do 1,000.
Okay.
No, it's the
How
budget,
much?
but I will write, that's what I
Well,
got
you
the
mark,
budget.
so I got like 124.
No, you know, you
Score.
get it, yeah, because,
You-
you
you
know,
reduce
they
the
are
score.
like kind of really
How are you?
actually how to do that.
So, and I got
So you
nervous
focus
because
on
they still, I
only
said, well, you know, the original
hospice,
said we
maybe
do
one
7,000.
Hospice,
That's
medicine,
money,
money,
even if I cut
economics, if that was one of them, and.
I mean, basically, they gave us
I'll try
enough
to
to do
play
the
out,
training.
grab with the national.
Yeah, yeah, but
No,
I
no,
will
no,
show you,
no,
I will
no,
show you
yeah.
how to do that,
So-
and then,
I mean,
because
this can't,
this is that we do, they want to.
But I knew we, I
And,
figured we would have.
So you
I thought they'd give us
everybody
like
includes PubMed,
3/4.
then I would throw
That's
evidence
kind
in and just
of
exclude
half of
PubMed
ours,
records.
half of
and
them
then
fill out their part,
you-
and leave the
and then you
training,
can
but they
help.
didn't do that. So now I have to
Yeah.
training before.
Right.
They
And
want me to
single
do first,
absolutely
half the budget.
Yeah.
This is quite wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I
well, it's-
and
it's-
I had those,
it's-
and
but
I
I
don't have
never
any
detailed.
questions. I definitely want to
Okay.
questions, yes. I will definitely contact you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know how to find the message?
Not yet, not yet. And you know, when they call you, they always
But
say,
go to the
this is
PubMed
no,
site.
this is
Yeah,
not
There's a
really
little
community
video,
grant,
so
but
it's long.
would you accept
This
this
is
much
like-
money if it comes in and you do it?
On the, where the tab is for
So I'm not
PubMed,
gonna
the
turn you away
right-hand side,
now.
it says PubMed guide.
Okay.
Just
Okay, great, great.
The other
Thank you so
thing I
much.
did,
You're welcome.
I
And
think,
there's
and
similar
that's
things to do
down
in
upstairs.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Your presentation is really helpful.
Well, I hope it does help.
Thank you.
Excellent.
And I can lower it, which is.
Let
Because what the way it was, she had in the mail,
Okay.
Also, I have some
is this is instructional.
for some video reference newspapers.
Even though I told her half of
They
it
will
was
come
not
to my
training.
email box.
Okay.
She
So
said,
how can
you
I
have to go to the
connect
instructional.
newspapers with
But
my
this off campus,
my
not campus.
lecture?
And of course, these people are all on campus. But
I
she
want
said,
to
it's more than the total amount
automatically
the
refresh
scope of
my
work
newspapers, but
is
not
done
to
with by UAB.
when see
You
newspapers
can
one
count
by
it
one.
as
How
on
can I?
You can
All
try,
campus indirect costs.
what I would do is something like that is for the full
So,
time.
what I'm gonna do is make it so we're not doing
in your email.
Yeah.
more than
And
half.
put them in the folders.
So do slightly less than
Then you
half,
can
and
go
then
under
one
file
half, that is
report
correct.
and end of.
To do it, it'll give us.
Down at the
more
bottom,
grants.
it basically.
It was
something like
almost
PubMed
not
or something.
legitimate to do
It's a
it
drop
first,
down at the very
place,
top.
because all the
It
instructions.
says PDF file
Yeah.
with folders. And
But she
you
said that, but this work
Now,
is done
if it can find the
also,
metadata
but I work
online,
with the.
it will.
Let's say it
So
was
do
almost
you
even,
know,
yeah, I mean, there was work to be
Those are the
done, and
ones.
oversight, and talking, and
So
planning,
how
and
can I get this?
stuff. So if there was, you
So
could
we have to
legitimately
get
sort of
this
say that there was
full
work.
text online.
That was justified later. So
No,
the school
it-
might not be happy,
Well,
but
what
I
was
see.
going on, I thought you
money
said
to do
somebody
it.
sent
In
you
other
the
words, I have
PDF.
PDF
it's
some
950.
I just received some innards
So
from
46, 46%.
But
But
Oh, so you were just giving, citations.
Yes, efficient.
Yeah, you'll
Not
have
there.
to look them up in.
But the
there.
off-campus is 26.
It's sometimes
So that-
faster to look them up in.
A little more direct, that gives me more
Yeah,
money.
because you can search
Direct.
PubMed, one note, and it's not good
So
for
I'm
auto
gonna-
search.
That I'm gonna
Typically, if you have
do,
just
and
the
to do
article
that,
and
I
copy and
probably
paste the
have to
title
sign
line,
it too.
you'll be able, I don't
It's
see
slightly
on this
less than
machine.
And just,
But if you want to leave your information, I can send you.
we cut down, the UAB cut
couple
down
of
its
such
scope so
instructions
that
and
we
screenshots
are
that
doing
show you how to do that.
therefore it's off. Now, only
Because
because they won't care,
You
actually,
have to get it in there somehow. You
give me a
can't get
budget, here's what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
Well-
Justify it, justify it.
Yes.
Every day,
And then we
maybe
can
1
talk
week
about
or.
You gotta get
What
it
can
through the
happen is
system,
what
you give me a justification for this
Get
amount
out
of money,
and PubMed and.
we'll give it to you, and then we'll talk about really what we need.
It just, that's